Okay, today we are joined by the legendary Rob of Seattle Chronic Seeds out there in Oklahoma. What up, dude?
What
How you doing, brother?
So fucking happy to have you here, dude. You're we'll say it right now, you're going to be our biggest guest that we've had to this date. Super appreciate your time taking your busy time, I'm sure, down there to come chat with us for an hour or so. But I'm glad you're here, dude. So Rob, a little background on kind of our relationship and how I know Rob is, we've grown and continue to grow his genetics in our facility at Spark up here in Washington. We were trying to get in with like a bunch of local breeders, and Rob just tended to have the fire. We're currently running his melvins, which you've seen a write up in it in Leaf that they didn't mention him in, unfortunately. Those motherfuckers. But that is his proprietary strain, and dude, it is fire. We got some of it rolled up today. We're gonna smoke while we chat with you. But yeah, dude, that strain has been killing it,
bro? Yeah. It's
so
like
thank
one
you
of
for
those,
that.
like I describe it as like drinking grape juice at the gas station. Like it's just like so funky but sweet.
Yeah, it's got that real weird aftertaste to it. It's not quite. It's like gravy, but it's got that. I don't. Something you can't put your finger on, like a funk to it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a funk, but you can't say like what funk it is. It's just a funk. Something
Yeah.
out there. It's not like dirty socks or whatever. It's just a
No.
funk.
Yeah. Indescribable. But yeah, that's. I'm so stoked that you guys were able to crush that out too. That was something I passed on to John, and it's been a pleasure coming down there. And it's one of the things I dearly miss is just being able to go down and chat with you guys and kind of, walk through the rooms and talk about things and genetics and kind of chill out. So
Yeah,
next time I'm down in Washington, I'll definitely stop by.
yeah, you better. So let's talk about that Melvin's a little bit since we're on the topic, dude. How did that strain like come about? Like, how did you tailor that? How did you come up with that?
It's actually kind of so I got a bunch of cuts, and then they were from Shango of Shaping Fire, through this patient drive in Vashon back when we had medical stuff. And so basically there was like a meeting that we would have over in Vashon, and I kind of would throw down seeds because they do huge giveaways. It was amazing, huge patient driven thing over on Vashon Island. And so I grabbed a few cuts that they had there, and one of them was Z Skittles, and it was a Wonderland cut from Wonderland Nursery in California. So that I kind of did some research on things, and I created a strain called 1Z, which was essentially the one from Clackamas Coot crossed with Z Cube, which is Z Skittles or Skittles back cross. And so I kind of was figuring putting all those together would stabilize it, because anyone that's grown Skittles, it's not really it's not really a vigorous plant. It doesn't root well. It's kind of a problematic plant. I just I never really enjoyed it, and that's one of the things I went for. And so I did this pollination in high hopes, and got all these seeds. I hunted through all of them. Well, I had this huge catastrophe where ants came in and brought in aphids and ate a bunch of my plants and seed stock and infected everything. And then this was like, I mean, like a huge, massive hunt that I spent a lot of money on. And so it was heartbreaking, but I had a few plants survive out of thousands of seeds. And so one of them was the Melvin seed, and it was that cross. And so it came up out of everything. There were 3 or 4 other plants that survived out of thousands. And it ended up being a female. And so I took a clone of it, ran it again. And every time I kept running it, it got better and better. And so I started passing it out, and people were kind of hit me back and like, what in the, what did you give me, man? Because it's fire. And so that's where I kind of started branding, because I like to go after the grunge names of, Seattle, just that kind of from my time and where I come from in Seattle. It's kind of an ode to it. Same with the logo, but that's really why I like coined it melvin's, and then it just took off. I mean, it was one of the things I had, and you guys really took an amazing care of growing it and cultivating it and giving me information. John does absolutely an amazing job of tracking that stuff, and he just gave it a lot of praise. And coming from John, that's probably one of my biggest accolades, is hearing him say like, dude, that's good, because that guy's scrutinous about everything. And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's really when I kind of knew, is once it was, you guys had really good luck with it too. And through other environments, other facilities, they were kind of hit me back in different states and just saying like, man, this stuff's good. So yeah, that's how it kind of came
Yeah.
about.
And the market up here loves it, dude. Like that's one of our, one of our top sellers. As well as like it makes a damn good rosin, right? Like it's really fucking, like it makes trichomes down to the stem. Like this is how coated this
sandy. They're
is.
super sandy. They're not greasy at all. And that's what I try. When you like rub it, you get like sand on your hands. Like you can feel it.
And it's sticky as fuck. It's a great cultivar. It's cool to hear that it like came out from from the depths of hell almost, of just this,
yeah.
this
So it's
decimation.
a survivor, and I mean it.
Oh yeah.
It lives up to its. It can root, like I can take cuts of it and throw it in water, and it'll root in 7 to 10 days. Like I have no issues with rooting them.
Yeah.
It's vigorous, and it just packs on. I mean, resin content. Like it just.
She's a bush, dude. We were just cloning melvin's yesterday. And I looked at our plant tag and I realized that we had this mom around for 5 months. Like that, our turnover is usually like 2 months, and to have a plant around 5 months, we've cut off it maybe 3 or 4 times and did like a full room of it. That's crazy. Like it just makes fucking material, and clonable material.
Yeah.
So dude, like it's a production cultivar for sure. But let's, I kind of wanted to ask, because you started out here in Washington as like a breeder grower and all that good stuff. How do you even go about breeding or doing that legally here in Washington? Was it the medical card that you had, or maybe you had a tier 1? How do you navigate that as like a breeder up here in Washington?
Loopholes.
It's gotta be. That's what I figured. There's gotta be something that you gotta do.
You can't necessarily, you have to have a license. And so my thing was, of course, I come from a traditional market, and so I still kind of stood by that standpoint. And that's really what brought me to Oklahoma, was the fact that I could get a license for $2,500 here and run as many plants as I wanted. And I was sold on that idea, because it's like I was really kind of pushing things with using a hemp license and things like that. And so it was like you can grow them out to a certain point, and then you're kind of flipping that script, and you're still in the sense where you make a wrong move and your family could see the consequences. And so it's something that I couldn't do anymore, and it was very stressful. And that's really why I came to Oklahoma, was because I couldn't do it to the standard that I needed to. So I mean, unfortunately, with the way that Washington's set up and their plant counts, it's very hard to do, because you have to run through so many different seeds to be able to find things. And it's like, when you kind of limit yourself to this bottleneck, that's all you're really doing, is creating another one. It's, you only have to, unless you're running original genetics, where it's like land races or things that are completely unique, but only running, 2 or 3 seeds of each cultivar, and you can only grow out 4 or 6 there or something, unless you register with the state, and then it's like 15 max, but you have to give up your rights for firearms and things like that, which I refuse to do. And so Oklahoma, no, this is why, I can walk around with open carry here. It don't even matter.
Everywhere.
Yeah, no, they are freedom over down there in Oklahoma. And know that that makes a lot of sense for a breeder to go down to Oklahoma with the like unlimited plant count, because that's what I was thinking here in Washington. It was like, you could do the medical card, but you could do like 16 plants, which is great for people who like just want to grow their own medical. But for someone who has to hunt through seeds, like good fucking luck. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It literally, to really actually look for what you're looking for, even with genomic sequencing and analyzation, to be able to sex test, it's like you have to run thousands of seeds. And that's what I didn't start figuring out until I would run hundreds, but it's when you start getting into the higher numbers, you really start finding those things that you're looking for, the traits, the attributes, the gold. That's really, you have to hunt through a variety. And it's like, before, I feel like I was really settling for things, and now that I kind of have opened up my eyes, I'm really ruthless about it. It's like I'm culling things left and right, and you know, it's just I'm kind of set my standards a little bit higher here, so hopefully that should show in my work in the future.
Hell yeah. And then there in Oklahoma, is your facility like indoor?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I know that there's a lot of people who will like, just because of that open space and the amount of like, there's no cap, right? So they just do hoop houses or they do a bunch of
Yeah,
greenhouses.
that's the primary market, and it works well, especially I mean, there's like a hoop in a hoop house style that the Asians like to do primarily, and it's very effective. I mean, you can run, you know, slight light dep in them, and it's 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 workable product for sure. But I just, you know, I like to kind of see things in each environment, and so I do have friends that have outdoor hoop houses, greenhouses, where we're able to test them in multiple environments. But for me, I'm doing indoor right now. I would like to add a greenhouse or two for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the future.
Is that just so that way you could test your stuff in different environments and make sure that it's solid?
Yeah, and it's also to do kind of more with testing with pests and things and like how they react, because, you know, of course on indoor we're very scrupulous in our ways, and I like to go through and make sure to, you know, change clothes entirely, and I don't ever have bugs on me, and we're spraying all the time, we're doing our IPMs. But outside it's like you can do that through and through, and no matter what you do, there's always something that's going to get through, and you're going to have to test and see like what the plant does and resilience to certain things. And so I do kind of have some stuff in between, like that I'll put, you know, in kind of like a small hoop or whatever, to see how they hold up and see what infects what, and kind of how the resistance is to certain cultivars once they get to a certain point. And I'm like, okay, these are rocking, like let's get them outside and see, you know, how they do in this, and or how they do in the freeze, because the temperature swings here are like
Oh, bro.
insane. I mean, like one day it was 74, the next day it was -1. And
Yeah.
so it's
It's like
there's
tornado warning the next day. Like, yeah.
it's like you can have your plant go through the, you know, a female plant that can go through these, you know, dramatic changes and not show any intersex traits. And it's like, you know, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is like the best of the best that can endure just torture and they're still able to perform moderately. But if you put a lot of love and you're able to, you know, put your heart into the plant, it's going to show for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
No, you mentioned bugs, and you talked pre-show and said that there's quite a bit of bugs down there in Oklahoma. Is that comparable to Washington? You know, like 200% more?
Man, it's just the intensity of them. Aphids specifically, it's like I've dealt with, I can't tell you how many farms, and I know it's a big deal pretty much everywhere, but I mean, just the intensity of them. It's like you'll go out and I'll clean it out and, you know, make sure everything's fogged out, completely wipe it, and within another day or two they're back, and it's like you've completely cleaned it, but they got in from somewhere else. And so it's just the pressure from them is consistent, even with banker plants. It's like so I'm trying to have to figure out, like, you know, what works best in these conditions, just because it's, you know, adapting from the Washington environment. It's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they have like a caterpillar season out there too. These
Oh yeah,
caterpillars, you have
massive.
like this outdoor like shitty hoop house. They just come and just eat everything, to decimate it, dude. I've been to so many farms where like half of their grow is just wiped out by caterpillars, and you're like,
pretty much every year. That's a big thing, are caterpillars, and then of course I would say that, but that's everywhere. I think caterpillars and California too. So I mean, but they're pretty intense here. I would say people need to get on their BT game for sure.
Yeah. And you were also speaking on, you know, like quality of cannabis down there in Oklahoma. And you mentioned people that a lot of people spray in flower. I'd imagine that's because the bug pressure is so high. Sure. That it's, I don't want to call it necessary, but that they feel that maybe that's the only thing they can do.
It's the only thing that they can say. I mean, because they're so reliant on saving the product. I mean, that's just how it is. It's like they have to make it through. And while those products may be OMRI listed or, you know, whatever, it's still, in my opinion, you know, it just goes against my practices. Like I have a very exposed immune system. I'm celiac. I have, you know, all kinds of immune system conditions. And so I've gotten pneumonia a few times. It's like, I can literally feel when there's stuff in it, and I mean, I've had a lot of problems with that on the market. And it's like, you'll get something that smells good, get it, and it just burns black as shit, you know, and it's not to do with the moisture content, but I mean, there's like you can taste it.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
that's what
say,
I'm trying to tell people. You can always taste a certain pesticide and what it was, and even if it's been diluted out through time, you know, usually they sprayed it week 3, it's still like, no, I can still taste that. And the concentrates are the worst. I mean, like, they have like $5 grams. Like, I mean, you can get like, what is it, an ounce of carts for like $140?
oh,
Yeah, they have all
that's
these
sketchy.
like bundle deals. You can go get like, if you buy
crazy.
this many, they're like $4 a pop or something. Yeah.
Yep, for grams of.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh no, I'm good. Like, I have to stick with what I know. You know, it's all hash rosin for me for the most part.
Yep.
If I did
Yeah.
smoke concentrate.
Yeah, no, and two, like you know, you spoke about like OMRI listed pesticides. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but they don't really, I don't know, there's not a lot of information on what happens to that stuff after it's smoked, right? Like after you burn it, and like it's safe to spray, sure, but like when you combust it and inhale it, is it safe then? You know, so yeah, no, I'm spraying in flower. That's one of our practices. And we actually just talked about this the last meeting. Like, there are places even here in Washington that you can taste, right? Like, people spray in flower, and it's very noticeable. It's quite a difference. So no. And so are you with your grow? I'm assuming you don't spray in flower or anything. So like, are you just relying on banker plants and vegetative, like, I don't know, IPM?
Yeah, beneficial insects primarily, like sachets. I just kind of rotate different species. I mean, depending on what type of season, that's what I'm kind of learning here. Using nematodes consistently. That's I have a constant routine of that. But other than that, I mean, I do a lot of own foliar sprays. I do a few Jadam wetting agent dips. Like, I do it all through veg. I mean, I keep it pretty organic. Occasionally I'll use, like Lost Coast diluted with ISO, if need be, for more, towards the end of things. But like, other than that, now it's always just beneficial insects. Like, I'll have mite sachets every few weeks during flower. And then I just kind of rotate which mites are in the soil, rove beetles, and yeah.
And rove beetles are persistent, man. Like, I swear we haven't introduced rove beetles to our facility in a while. And then every once in a while, you'll just see them like explode out of the pot and be crawling all over the place. You're like, holy shit, those are still here. Like,
they'll fly around. You're like, oh man, is that a gnat? And you're like, oh man, that's a bunch of roves I just pissed off. Like,
yeah. Or you clap it from the air, and then you look at it, you're like, oh no, that was a friend.
yeah, I do that. Oh man, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Betty, put them back.
So yeah. So you talked a little bit off air, but let's kind of delve into the like Oklahoma market. So you went down there, and you were partnered with a company that was producing for dispensaries, right? And so where, like, kind of run us through that again. So you worked with them, and they just kind of weren't aligning with what you wanted, right? Like, go ahead and kind of cover that once again.
It's just more to deal with financially of things. Like, it's just like the financial aspects of things. Like, problems come about, and then essentially you just can't get paid for the work that you're promised. And so that's really the biggest problem I've had, is that, like, I just can't do things for free, unfortunately. Like,
no. Of course not. So it's mostly because that Oklahoma market's so damn saturated that it's hard for people to even make money, really profit out there.
It's starting to get there, yep. And so that's really what they're starting to see, and it's got a little ruthless in that sense, where as I was kind of talking about. But yeah, people just they're doing what they can to stay alive. And it reminds me a lot of Washington, back when they drowned out all the small farmers and things like that. So it's kind of just yeah, it's what they're going through here. And it's just that, fight or flight thing, where you put all your money, your savings, your everything into it, and it's just not going to survive regardless of what you do. But you're going to scratch and claw until you go way under. And it's going to happen to a lot of people here, unfortunately, because it's like, doing consultations on things. I've gone out to people and tried to give them advice on certain things, and they're kind of set on their ways. Being, some of them older, that's just what they've done, and they don't want to listen to, a punk kid tell them what to do. Or the other people are so set on their SOP that their master grower from California developed, and it's like trash. And so I'm like, well,
Really,
you need
it's
just a consistent thing that I'm seeing. And so a lot of these people who are just, trying to make money off of it, especially the smaller ones, they're just not, because there's so many people with capital that are moving in to basically drive the bottom, up to where it's going to be a battle to the bottom again. People are going to sit at the lowest price for probably a year, and then they're going to pretty much there's going to be 4 or 5 major producers who are going to control the market.
Yeah, I was going to say those people are not making money for that time too. They're literally
they're
just
scraping
they
by.
can bleed everyone out. That's their purpose, is to
Yeah.
be able to do that. And so I mean, it's sad, but it's part of the game.
Yeah.
It's what people do in this market, like the recreational market.
Yeah, it's like Mango Cannabis does that on a dispensary out there, and they have tons of money that they're just sitting on. I think and Capital Dank is another one that's like that, where they're just like, we'll eat our margins all day for like 3 years, 4 years, and then at that point we'll flip over and we'll start making money, and they have the capital to do that. Yeah. And even on those mid-tier, like there's a lot of like oil money out there, and a lot of like like older dudes who just have money for no reason, that are like, oh well, let me get in the weed business, and then they don't know how to run a weed business. They know how to run an oil company. And so like, yeah, dude, it's frustrating when you're working with some of those people and they think they know what's up, and then they really don't, and they're driving all their shit into the ground. And they thought all this money was just gonna fucking come, right? They're like, weed was just gonna cash and print out money. Like the second they start growing it, they're just gonna get that return instantly, and didn't think about the marketing and the pushing their product and any of that.
I feel like that's how it goes each time a state does something similar to Oklahoma. There's just a green rush. Everyone goes to that state, and then it saturates, and then they stopped issuing licenses in Oklahoma now, right?
Last November.
No, but it's a little bit harder to obtain one, and they kind of started eliminating the people who have gotten them illegally, essentially, or using other people's names, because you have to have 2 years of residency to obtain one. And so that's kind of the part, is a lot of people were just moving here to sit and wait and get it put in their applications, because it was such a a nominal fee. It's like $2,500 per license or whatever for cultivation, extraction, dispensary. They're all $2,500. So.
Oh, okay. And can you vertically integrate there in Oklahoma? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
Damn. Okay.
There's 1 or 2 people that are doing it, and that's kind of how I've one of them is that they're a really good company, Leaf Logic, and that's kind of what they're starting to do. They started out making rosin specifically, and ran some of my Bueller, and I kind of interacted with them a few years ago, and so I've been talking with them about stuff. But that's one brand to kind of look out for, that they really do things right. They have a really nice washing facility, only highest quality material, and it's just phenomenal product. And it's few and far between, but there are a few people here really kind of setting a standard in brands and doing it right, that are small farmers and built and started to grow up and did things right. But it's few and far between, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is kind of unfortunate. But okay, so you mentioned rosin pressing, and I know that you've come to our facility and kind of schooled us a little bit on certain rosin things. How long have you been actually like pressing, whether it be for yourself or
10 years?
Okay. So yeah, you've got quite
back
a bit
in the
of knowledge.
hair iron days. So it's like when we were just getting, like, people were starting to use hair irons and t-shirt presses. And I mean, I've been doing like bubble hash and like washing stuff, but we would just smoke it as what it was, and it wasn't quite to the standard of today's product. Like full melt and stuff, it was there, but not like the standard of what we know now, unfortunately. And so I've been washing stuff since I was a teenager, but it's like really, it didn't come until I would say 2011, 12 is when rosin really started kind of coming onto the scene. Like after slabs of shatter and things like that, people were squishing buds with hair irons, and that's like my intro to it.
Nice.
Fuck
Yeah. So
dude,
you
that's
started from
legendary.
the old school. I remember, yeah, people were taking the hair iron and shit and making hash, and
Using the
it did
C-clamp
okay.
I used the C-clamp and a hair iron.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
yeah.
The it's like, you know, when they invented the wheel, you know, you gotta make a stone wheel first, and then you improve it.
What
So
was your favorite squish? Like, do you remember?
Oh man, the first one that what was it? It was like it was not kosher kush, it was a certain kush, and I can't remember which specific one. But I remember taking it back from the dispensary, and like I brought it back the next day and sold it, all of it back, because it was like they were so blown away, like the flavor of it and just the clarity. Like I just remember like thinking that was so unreal to come out of a hair iron, like way back in the day. Like it was just such a quality flower rosin. But that was before people even started really pushing hash, and then people started, you know, putting hash, bubble hash, and like little parchment things and pressing them through the irons and seeing that. And yeah, it just kind of progressed into what it is today, and it's amazing. I mean, honestly.
Hell yeah.
yeah, I mean, you showed us the ways of the static tech, and
Yeah, I actually was going to talk to Matt a little bit more about that. There's a gentleman out here who he's pulling some crazy. He's kind of done a few different methodologies, and I was watching, went over and watched him work for a little bit and stuff. And so, just on how to pull statically charged heads, different methodologies too, way faster. I mean, he's doing a lot of material in a short amount of time, and it's like full melt quality sift, like, you know, 5-6 star sift, or you can press it out in the rosin. But it's just
Please teach us.
phenomenal product.
yeah, we're and do are they getting more yield from those methods? Like, I don't know if that question makes sense, but
I mean, it's just
or you just better quality.
better quality, and I mean, it's a faster process. Like the stuff I was kind of going and showing you guys through static tech, it's, you know, the older way where you're just kind of sifting, and it's like you're whatever glands are charging. But it's like there's ways I'm finding out of making more pressure in static to get more of it to happen faster. And so it's just basically pushing through the material at a faster rate and getting more of the product.
Okay. You need to school us, because they just threatened that they weren't going to do any more rosin, so we can't have that happen.
Well, it's because we're squishing the stuff out, and honestly, it was probably too warm in the environment we were squishing it. But like
That was the case usually.
We're used to like, you know, 50-60% off of what we're squishing, you know, like weight coming out versus going in. And like, man, that day it was like 30%. And it was like, nope, hard stop. Like, we can stop doing this. And I was like, well, we can move over into like a dry room. It's colder in there.
Right. That, and it was too warm while we were actually making the bubble hash as well. Like the container was just getting warm, and the sun would beat down on it because he'd do it outside where it was colder, but then the sun would anyway. This is about you. We're talking to you. We don't care about what we're doing at our facility. We can talk about that anytime. So let's get back to your breeding, man. Like, kind of where did that even all start? Like, why did you decide that you wanted to do that? Was there like a mission behind that?
Yeah, it was mostly medicine. Like there just wasn't the standard. Like when I was kind of starting out and having problems in my early 30s, like when I started figuring out I was celiac and I just developed a ton of medical issues. And it was like I was looking for things that would kind of help with what was going on. The primary thing was me getting off of opiates, like from doctors prescribing that from a life of, you know, extreme sports like snowboarding, taking hard falls and things. And so I was on opiates for many years, and they thought that was my life. And so I was very uncomfortable and miserable. And so I made the decision to get off of them entirely by using RSO and clean eating. And it was hell on my body. But, you know, after like 2-3 months, I kicked everything and have never touched anything ever since. And I refuse to be given any pharmaceuticals because of that, unless it's antibiotics or things like that. And so
awesome, dude.
After being off of those, I really developed a lot of, you know, feeling pain, like, you know, because it's like I had been numb for so many years, and you could find certain things, like that's when like Harley Sue and Sour Tsunami, and there were certain things out there, but they were all really racy sativa dominant, driven
Yeah.
CBD dominant cultivars, and I was looking for like a 1-to-1 that was like could stimulate my appetite, take down my pain, and basically just allow me to be a functionable human, just kind of like the narcotics they gave me, and it that's really where I went down super sour CBD, was trying to like figure out like how to make 1-to-1s, and then I kind of just went down the path of like reading all the books and figuring out how the genetics work, and then seeking out hemp seeds and THC cultivars, and then smashing them together, and just really trying to figure out what worked for my body. And then you start to get a sense of all the different plant morphologies and what's good, and it becomes an obsession almost when you start making something that works for you or somebody else, and then so you want to keep reproducing things that help people out. And so originally it was to help myself and others, and then just kind of spiraled out from there.
Nice. And then you have a couple pretty like well-known 1-to-1 strains. I know I think you brought one of them into our facility and we tried it out, but they don't want that CBD shit apparently in the rec market too much up here.
Yeah.
There's just not a huge market for it, especially with the medical being gone. People are finding their medicine from generally home growers. But yeah, what talk about the couple of 1-to-1s that you've produced or made that you're, I don't know, stoked on, and then go ahead and tell us if you would, about like how you decided to take this plant and that plant and smash them together. Why those two?
Well, I think mostly like my first one was just really, um, it was like all these males that I kind of had grown out and seen. It was like finally finding a female that I really liked, but it just needed something else. And so I said, well, this male, which was a sour CBD grenades, I was just looking for something sour that basically would work. And he had a really sour smell, not from the stemra, but just in his vegetative state, like an extremely sour smell. And so it was like, I took a clone of it, threw it in water, and it rooted immediately. And that's when I was like, okay, I think there's something special with this male plant. So I like decided to use them, and made my first batch of seeds, and that's where super sour CBD came from. And so it was kind of like that became a huge project in itself, because it's like I've taken it to like, and I'm working on F8s now, but in reality it's probably like a F13, because I've had it back crossed it a few times, and there's things where the crosses that I had to make to go into that specifically. And so it's like there's a lot of work into that specific plant, and it was bred for me, and so that's why I'm so proud of
Right.
Superpower CBD. And there's another one that was in Washington that was called the SOG, SOG, and that one, it stood for Stuberg OG, which was my last name. It was the first 1-to-1 that was just like a straight OG profile, and it tested at like, I think 24 or 25% total cannabinoids, and it was a 1-to-1. And this is bad. Yeah, it was just like, it was a beast, and it was an amazing, I think it was like a medicated OG back cross from Red Eye Genetics. I'd have to look up the genealogy, because this is, like 8-9 years ago or something like that. So, but that particular plant, that did really well in the medical scene up there until about 2015-16. There were 2 collectives in Tacoma, specifically, that we vended it out of. And so yeah, that was a really beautiful plant as well.
Have you found like a rec grower anywhere you've gone, or anywhere you've kind of sent your seeds, that continues to grow to these 1-to-1s? Like, is there somewhere out there that this is recreationally marketable?
Man, I really wish that was the case, but it seems like unless it can produce hash or do something special, because that seems to be the problem, is like I feel like it would sell in hash form, like if you had a nice hash rosin, but with all the CBD dominant stuff, it turns into that taffy state, to where it's like you can't butter it, or you can't make it into diamonds or other. It's just this sticky
Like
taffy
taffy.
residue. Yeah, and it just won't change. I mean, that's just what it's going to be.
Like with all the whipping, all the heat or cold tech or whatever.
Yeah,
There's literally nothing you can do to it.
Yeah, and that's all the CBD dominant. Kind of a sap. It turns into like a taffy or a sap for the most part.
I've seen that a lot with CBD too.
Yeah, and so that's what
Generally
it
always
means
sap.
to. And I think it's just to do with the actual weight and the content of the heads. That's what was explained to me through that whole static tech is, the weight of CBG versus CBD and the heads and how they're charged and things like that. And so it makes a lot of sense. And so the only cultivars we're going to run a few at the one I spoke of, Leaf Logic, and try a few out. They're going to wash a few of them and kind of experiment and see, because they've tried to meld them together and got the same results where it just tends to be more of a taffy. And so we're going to try and see if we can get something that is, a solid, beautiful, clear hash rosin product, but it's a 1-to-1 with a good profile. So people that need medicine will enjoy smoking it. But I think that's primarily it. It's like, if I could find something that had those, GMO, funky, gassy, garlicky terps, but was a complete 1-to-1, I'm all in for it.
Yeah, me too. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I'll get down with 1-to-1 rosins, because sometimes they either just like sedate the fuck out of me. Because we just pressed this Ethiopian. I just had some of your melvin's rosin, like I was talking about too, and those two just like smacked me into the dirt.
Yeah.
Like I would just be like too stoned to function. But yeah, a nice balanced one would be really nice. And if we could get that same consistency that we had out of those into a 1-to-1, that's a good mission. I like that.
That's pretty much it. Because in terms of flower, it's out there and it needs to be available. Like, I feel like each producer should at least have one cultivar, for that medical aspect. If they're, claiming to be medically driven or things like that, then it's important to have something like that in your stable, or something that may be CBD dominant. That's beautiful, but it just isn't sellable. Unfortunately, people will go buy hemp flower for what, 100th of the cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They'll just buy this gas station CBD.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that the market, like in general, is ever going to mature to the place where, people are seeking more of an entourage effect, and they're like looking for the weed that has the different cannabinoids in it and more variety versus just a high THC percentage?
Yeah, they're catching on for sure, but it's a smaller market. Like, it's just not as marketable, and so people aren't really into it as much. But it's definitely the medical crowd. Like, there is a community that needs it, and people who are relying on this plant specifically for that. It is fun and it's cool, it gets you high, but when you use it as medicine, it can do amazing things.
Very holistic way to heal your body. Yeah
That would have to be more of like I feel like a worldwide acceptance of weed. Then we might get to a point like that, to where you have a big enough audience or whatever that wants this product.
That's exactly it.
You have
But
to have
until
all 7 billion.
money driven, it's money driven for the time being, and that just doesn't pay people money, unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you have a strain that that you're let's go to like the strains that you're working on now. Are you currently working genetics and stuff?
I have a ton of stuff.
Of course you do. You're a breeder. You got a ton of stuff.
Fuck yeah.
So I have my Bueller, which is banana blue crossed with Star Dog and G6 jet fuel, which I've taken to an F4. So I have the F4s, the super sour CBD F8s. I have a few FEMs that I made. I did the melvinZ, so I reversed the melvinZ, and I have the first batch of FEMs from those. I have another one, which is Bicket cross with melvinZ, and Bicket's GMO and cherry pie. It's phenomenal washer as well. So that's nicknamed the Boz, after Brian Bosworth.
Fuck yeah.
So those are kind of my seed projects for mine. I got a bunch of other stuff going: chems, menthols, a bunch of THCV stuff, Harley Sue, F3 back cross ones and F4s, Stephen Hawking Kush IBLs. I have a few different males, and then I probably have a list of, I think 15 or 20 cuts that I'm kind of working through as well, from seed selections over, from like Y East and a few other breeders other than myself.
What makes you choose the strain that you're going to go for, or the cross that you're going to go for? Like, are you looking for effect? Are you looking for flavor, or is it a combination of all these things?
I think it's a combination. It just really depends. Like when I'm going through it, I other breeders will know this, but it's like you get all these seeds out and you're looking, you're like, okay, these ones, and then you go back to pop them, you're like, no, I'm not going to do these. I'm going to grab these. It's like constantly you're I don't know, it's funny. And so I have certain things that like kind of line up as projects. And then the other stuff is just stuff that I'm curious of, or either the medical aspects that I'm trying to breed into lines.
It's kind of like being a breeder is like having ADD. You were focused on a project, then you're like, ah, no, fuck that. I'm going to go to this project.
It helps for sure.
Yeah.
And then go back to the other one, and then this other one that you didn't talk about. So.
Right.
And then, ooh, look at that one over there.
Yeah. Do you have a strain that just like kind of took off, or would that be MelvinZ?
I would say probably MelvinZ. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really took off. I'd say MelvinZ is definitely the one.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So right now, MelvinZ is the magnum opus.
Because there's a few I really liked and that I thought would take off, but when it came down to it, it's like, no, they just didn't. Like lip gloss was another one that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we had any of those, if how long ago these were, but yeah, no, I remember that lip gloss. I remember you came and took some cuts of it because you were like, oh, that one that smells like cherry chapstick, or whatever, No, a lot of those things too, and it's unfortunate because I look back on the time when we were running your genetics and we just weren't really environmentally dialed in our facility, man. And it like there's so many things in there that they were great in seed, and seed just tends to be like really vigorous. I mean, you could kind of beat the shit out of a little more and stress it out a little more, and it tends to still give you a decent product. But then you clone from that. And in my experience in the pheno hunts that we've done in our facility, that the clone always seems to do something a little bit different or react a little bit different. And so yeah, it's unfortunate because if I could grab like that lip gloss or that boomer or V8, right? Like all those to me were like, oh fuck, I loved those. And I think if we had a chance to run them now with our facility a little more tweaked and dialed in, that I think we could like find something very marketable in that. Because dude, you grow. I still have some V8 seeds in my my seed bank, the ones you gave me a while ago. Just waiting to grow those because I remember that was like, that's the one I want.
Dude, every seed has a different phenotypical expression in those. It's so crazy. Like there was not one pheno that is identical. It was the weirdest shit.
Are you talking about the ones we ran?
The V8, yeah, I'm not all of them. Every person that's grown them, that was one of the things. It's like nobody could find one. There's not, you could pop 2 seeds, completely different, 10 seeds, all of them completely different. Like it was really a trip.
Is that like a desirable thing as a breeder though, or would you prefer
Not
like more
necessarily. I think that's more male dominance. When you get those things, you kind of see the swings where it's just unreliability and like what the outcome is. And that's kind of why I didn't necessarily move on with that line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's cool. It's not something that I was, if I find a specific thing out of, 1,000 seeds that really shines out of all of them, then I would stop and take a look. But just to kind of, grab one, it's not something I would do.
Yeah. Man, something is exciting about like a seed that's like a mystery box. Like you're gonna grow it and it's gonna give you something fire, but you don't know what it's gonna be. Like it could be 100% different. That's kind of dope.
Do you still have like ties up here in Washington as far as like your breeding projects and stuff like that, or do you have like your testers still up here, or do you maintain a relationship other than like, of course, us with your MelvinZ and stuff, with people up here?
Yeah, there's a few people specifically that I maintain connections with, just to kind of keep the Seattle chronic, seeds alive. I just want to keep that based in Seattle, but we will definitely have like a new offspring from Seattle chronic seeds to kind of do seed production as well, from Oklahoma. Like I was thinking of the name Super Chronic Selections, and we're kind of putting that out there for a little bit, just because it's an offspring of it, kind of the same titled SCS, but it's just based more out of Oklahoma.
You don't want to like chronic seeds. You don't want to just
I was thinking Thunder Seed Co, but that would be another Thunder here. So
yeah, that'd be kind of cool too, because the logos could be like both of them, and it would make sense because you got the Sonics over here. Yep. That'd be dope.
Do you, if another state opens up that's not like Oklahoma or similar to how Oklahoma is, but maybe managed a little better in the later part of it, would you see yourself move? Are you flexible? Are you willing to
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, no, that's kind of what I mean. It's why I love it. Like the ability to come here, thanks to my wife, and she was able to get us down here and like support us, and thanks to her we were able to come down here and do this. Without her I would not have been able to.
yes,
But
Mrs. Chronic Seeds. Oh,
yes, a huge shout
saint.
out to her. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without her. So it's
Yeah.
huge to her. But
She
really,
seems to be a good marketer. Like she likes doing the online stuff, I feel like.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't see myself like spending the rest of my life here. That's one of the things that we really have probably had. It's such a huge change from Washington, and just everything. I mean, besides the scenery and making friends and things, it's really different. It's been stressful and hard on us and her especially, and so I don't necessarily know if this would be our home forever, unless we found a community or things that really took us in, and it just doesn't necessarily feel like home right now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we've only been here for 10 months so far, so.
Isn't it
Not-
crazy like looking out into the distance and like fucking seeing like OKC and you're like fucking 30 miles away or something? Like you can just see
Well,
the
in Tulsa, I mean, it is. It's just a trip, and even driving around and the scenery. I mean, there are some spots that kind of remind me of home, but I
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, I miss the Northwest for sure. The scenery there, it's just what I'm used to is the big sprawling mountains. And here, it's not as flat as everybody says. Like Tulsa, where I'm north of Tulsa, and
Oh,
so
okay, cool. Tulsa's dope.
rolling hills, and it's
Yeah.
real green. It's not
Mhm.
barren wasteland, flat. Like Kansas is flat, man. I'll tell you what, that's some flat place. Like even Idaho in spots, it's super flat. But
Right.
it's like, I mean, it's really not that flat, and it's kind of, it's got all the big city comforts and stuff outside, and there's a lot of farm life still.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I feel like the only flat part is just right there around OKC in that like kind of Dust Bowl region where it's like that, like down to Norman, kind of. It's just like tornadoes go through there. It's super brown.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
that would
tried
be an adjustment.
or Norman, like in the flat middle areas. It's like there's certain seasons where I'm like, no, I'm not going to be going there for 3 months.
Yeah, we're cool.
Yeah, that's a completely different change up too. Even like talking from like growing weed, man. Like you were talking like pests and shit and like environment, and now you like that's completely different than up here in Washington. Like it's just dry, flat, windy as fuck.
Brutal compared. I mean, like there you get your seasons, and here like we're really having a hard time because this winter has been so manic. Like I was telling you guys before I came on, like one day it would be 70, and then it goes down to 25, and then it goes to 84, and then you're at -1, and then it snows for 3 days, and then it goes up to 75, and your body's like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah, not just the plants, but you're like, holy shit.
no, it just throws you off. And I mean, we thought we were going crazy, but I asked other people who lived here, and they're like, no, it's not normal. This much of a swing is definitely not a normal here. They usually have a little more, like an ice storm or two, a few snows, and then it kind of makes way. But it's been a crazy year for sure.
No, you
Ice
came at the
storms are
anomaly
crazy.
season.
Yeah, the ice storm. Yeah.
It's that 2020, man. Everything went downhill in 2020. It just everything started happening. We had killer hornets, we had whatever the fuck, like just some weird shit's been happening since then. Either that or the media is just so saturated that we get to see everything now. Yeah, probably that. Most likely that. So nah.
Where would you want to go? Like of the states that aren't online yet?
Yeah.
And if you look out to like, what would be a cool dream destination to have, Chronic Seeds version, whatever.
What we've been, really talking about, and from here is really, that's kind of our next step. Like, I mean, there's a few things I really want to settle up here before we kind of step away. And,
For sure.
That's kind of what I'm asking myself at this point. It's like, I've been to a lot of places, I've traveled a lot, and now it's like, where is that? Like, where, if I could choose anywhere, where would that be? And it's definitely somewhere with mountains. Like, I definitely need to have my hills so I can go, have time with nature and stuff.
If
It's a
we
little bit.
ever, if we ever reach like a full, United States goes fully legal, right? Do you see yourself coming back up here in Washington, or do you like, if you could, like Josh said, like if you could just
Sure.
pick?
I mean, I could see it, but that's where my wife really would like to go back home. And, I think that's where my heart is for sure. But it's just the way it's been, recently. It's just been so against like what I grew up into. And like, I just felt like such a resistance trying to do everything there. So it was like time for us to get out of there. But it's like, there's the ocean, the mountains, the desert, like you have everything.
Right.
Uh,
Within 5 hours.
Yeah, within a few hours of it. And it's like, here it's like 10 hours, twice the time. Like you can get down to the Gulf Coast, but you got to go through Texas and then so you got to travel a lot to everything. And I just think kind of having the same environment as Washington, I don't necessarily know if we're going to go back there, but I mean, if legalization comes into play, that's where I would love to eventually end up.
It just all depends on, what's happening in that area or whatever.
Wyoming's beautiful country. They're still really against it. If they opened up, they would definitely need help. And that's why I say with like mountains and plains and rivers, it's just they don't have the ocean. That's the one thing, but I'm not completely set on that. So, it's more just dependent on like really my wife and my son and where they're happiest. And I can travel. I've done it my whole life. And so it's more about my family at this point.
Right. Like you as a person is like a nomadic, but then you're like, all right, now I got to consider my family too.
They've been with me through me trying to do this for so long that they just need stability, and I feel really bad because it's not being a breeder and stuff. It's not easy because there's not a consistent paycheck. There's not a guarantee that things are going to sell. You're basically in debt to the market, like with what you do. And if you make something that doesn't sell, then you're just sitting on your stock. So it's like it's kind of a catch because I love doing it for the medical aspect of things, but you also have to sell your product, and so you kind of have to find that fine line between it. And it's stressful. You have to market everything. You have to it's a full-time job through and through.
Right. Yeah. That's actually one of the last things I was going to ask you is like, how did it feel like, doing this as how hard was it to start breeding? Like I feel like that's a really hard.
Together is easy, but it's the whole part of trying, to sell your product to people, and then once they find out, it's basically just getting it out to people, and if it's good, it'll kind of speak for itself. And it took years. There's been thousands of points where I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The stress is too much. It's like, I probably said that twice this week. It's like, it's a constant thing. And that's, just being a breeder, you're constantly having to deal with the market, and that's what you're reluctantly dealing with is. And I don't want to, succumb to it and be a, hype seller and things like that. But unfortunately, hype sells, and it's like you have to figure out what you can market and sell. You have to do a lot of equating to yourself, scheduling, like again, marketing. You basically have to be working all the time.
Yep.
And then it doesn't even guarantee that it's going to work out. Like it's in times where I've had years of losses. Huge losses consistently. I probably had more losses than wins, unfortunately. And that's what people don't tell you. Like, it's like,
Right.
oh, people are like, oh, he's successful in this. And it's like, man, people don't understand how much I struggle or have struggled with, my family life, my missing things, or just my, like with my parents or my wife. And it just constantly, there's things that you're having to put up just for making these plants. And sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go get a normal job and like, you know, or something that makes money consistently. And
Yeah.
I can, then I come back and it's because I really love the plant and I believe in what I do. And so it's like, I feel like this is my path. It's just been, it's not an easy one. I mean, anyone who tells you, maybe they had a really good, successful time coming up the ranks, but like,
Yeah.
it's definitely been a struggle for sure. It has not been easy by any means. And I'm continuing to have to fight, you know, just to stay afloat every single day.
Yeah.
Whether it's failed partnerships that are coming back to, you know, slap you in the face, you know, because it's probably the most common negative thing that, you know, I see in this industry is just wanting to succeed with other people. And then you try and partner up and then things go wrong and it just ends up
You start
in your
seeing some money and then shit goes south. Yeah.
well, yeah, and it's
Oh,
just
back-
other things too, like about, you know, who owns what, or, you know, he stole this from me, or he, you know, he did this, or it's finger pointing and people constantly trying to basically put each other under. And I just,
Yeah.
you know, I wish I wouldn't see that from so many people. Like,
I was
it's a
gonna say, it
continuous
sounds like,
breeder battles all the time. Like, I mean, you see it like every week. There's somebody who hates somebody else, or you know, and it's just because this industry is so cutthroat, and a lot of us are trying to partner up with people we wouldn't necessarily with in the first place, and then it ends up blowing up in our face. And so it's that's probably the most negative aspect, unfortunately.
right. Yeah, I was gonna say it's so damn cutthroat. It's like one of those like not an office job, but like you'd see it like a stereotypical, like, oh, I gotta point out all the things they do wrong so that way I can get a leg up above them, or you know, just trying to like really, I don't know. It's kind of a shitty thing to do, especially. And then we also have like a fuck ton of like new breeders and then quote unquote breeders, people just throwing shit together, you know, coming online trying to make a name for themselves. And it's like Oklahoma, right? It's just we're fucking saturated. And there's more and more every day. And there's no licenses that have to happen to become a breeder.
Yeah.
So like anybody can do it. Like I could
Yeah.
do it in my closet if I wanted to. But yeah, man, that's unfortunate to hear that that's kind of the way, because like cannabis has always kind of had this, you know, we've always had this community, and now that there's a lot of money involved, it's like that community is really just kind of getting pushed down.
Yep.
So it's unfortunate to hear that.
Tight knit, tight lip. Like that's how it used to be. Everyone just kind of shut their mouths and they were close together. But now it's not. It's just kind of like what you see in the facility. People coming through in suits wanting to buy, you know, shit for the bottom dollar, like pennies for pounds. So I mean, that's
Oh
kind
yeah.
of where it's out.
Yeah, that's brutal, dude. Well, fuck, dude. As far as like, you know, we gotta make you some money. Where do you sell your seeds at? I think I've seen you on a couple. Are you on Neptune? Go ahead and hit
Yeah.
what
So
seed banks you got.
Seeds Here Now. Seeds Here Now probably has the largest collection of my gear, followed by Neptune Seed Bank, DC Seed Exchange. Paul has a lot of my gear as well. Let's see, FireTree Market in Tulsa, they have an online store that they just opened up. They also have a brick and mortar store where people in Oklahoma can grab seeds.
Fuck yeah.
Golden Ticket, they have some of my older stock, I believe. And let me see, I'm forgetting one or two of the companies, unfortunately. I have a few others that ChitownSeed, I believe they have some of the older Mactite lines as well, and then the Seed Connection as well.
Okay.
Charles. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you said you were either in so you were working on S1s on the Melvins, like those aren't out quite yet, right?
They're not released yet. I'm just finishing up on them, so they should be out here probably in the next month, I'm guessing. Like I have some of them are done. Some of the reversals that I hit with the Melvins, I'm just finishing up the testing to make sure everything's clear and that there's not a lot, you know, intersect stress or things like that through
Especially with S1s.
yeah, so I'm kind of putting a little extra work into those to make sure like the stuff that they were reversed on all came out solid, but I want to make sure, you know, to kind of stress them out and see if, you know, where they go. And then if they get the green light, I'll let them know.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. So yeah, anybody out there listening to this right now, go check out Seattle Chronic Seeds, dude. Like he's got the fire, and he's out in Oklahoma doing the thing, trying to just, you know, support his family and all that good shit. And he's got some fire coming out. I mean, like I said, we've grown a lot of the stuff in his facility. I wish we still had around. We talked about a couple, the lip gloss, the Boomer was one of my favorites. And now this melvin's that he's just about to release some S1s of. And
this melvin's is the shit too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over.
High.
It's all over our page on Instagram and all that. You guys can find it. It's pretty, and it's trichomes to the stalk. It washes well. It's also sticky, right? It's got this good grapey funk to it. Like, high praise on that, dude. Like, you killed it with that strain. It's so good,
and it looks good trimmed or untrimmed. Like, we keep it like kind of leafy because it's like trichomes all the way down to the stem, right? So you don't really have to do a hard trim on it. But if you take those outer leaves off, there's also this tight, like, beautiful bud under there too that is super frosty as fuck. So it's kind of got this like bag appeal either way. It's so good.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure, and guess what? We appreciate you for, taking, an hour or so out of your day to come chat with us.
It's super dope to talk to somebody who's like doing the shit. You know a lot, and you've been in the game for a long time. And I believe in you, sir. I feel like you're going to be hella successful, and we're going to have Seattle Chronic Seeds all over the US when this shit goes federally legal.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
that gives me the inspiration to keep chugging ahead. So
you got this, dude. We got you. We're gonna keep helping you. We're gonna pump shit.
Yeah, we're if they ever say we need to get rid of the melvin's, I'm gonna just fuck you.
Yeah, not allowed, bro.
Not allowed.
You gotta tell me. I'm gonna book a flight up, and I'll talk to Matt and chat.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, right. There we go. I'll reach back out. But Seattle Chronic Seeds on Instagram, his wife, Ms. Chronic Seeds. They are always answering, as far as I know. They get back to my DMs really fast. You have any questions?
Seattle Chronic Seeds at gmail.com as well. If you want to hit me up there directly. I've been refraining from IG a little bit just to focus more on work for a little while. So I won't be as on there as much, unfortunately. But feel free to email me if you have any questions.
Hit him with the direct line. Perfect. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you, Rob, for speaking with us today. And we will see you guys next week.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good day.
Love you. You too. Dude, thank you, Rob. For
hold on, I'm gonna go back.
No worries, dude. No worries. Oh, we always forget to tell people that we're gonna just wrap with them for just a second, at the very end. And of course, just to thank you again so much for your time, dude. I know you're really busy, and like I said, you're probably our biggest guest, so this feels like a real honor to have you on our show. And I'm glad that we made a connection, back when you were fucking doing shit in our facility. Truly wish you success. And it sucks to hear that shit's a struggle for breeders and people like you who are really trying to do good with the plant. So,
but you got the shit, dude. You got the fire. It's going to happen.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. I was fangirling the whole time.
What was that?
I said, I'm sure I'll be seeing you pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Teach us how to squish too. Cause I wasn't trying to do it on the recording, but we need some help because I feel like that melvin's could be so much better. And me and we have another coworker, Dylan, and we were trying, man, we're doing different warm-up times and press times and different pressures. And yeah, it just wasn't hitting.
So I'll have, I just had a bed of it here taken to the lab, and so they're washing it now, and we should have some numbers back on everything and some final products. So I'll be able to give. I mean, it's all done in temperature control, 30-degree washroom, and it's
right. So it's going to be lab. It's going to be probably one of the max that you can get. This is the potential, essentially. Is yeah. Cool. Fuck yeah. Dude, thank you again for your time. I will try to get this all edited and whatnot, and I'll send you a final product. Of course, it's going to be here in I think 3 weeks. This will air out. And then I'll try to put it on the YouTube too, and I'll send you all the links. And if you could send me via Instagram or email, doesn't matter, a picture or JPEG of your logo, so that way we can split you in for the cover art.
Absolutely. I got you.
Appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Thanks.